Thank you. Thank you, Mr Chair. Mr Chair, I'm speaking to Part 2 of the Carter Observatory Act Repeal Bill, which talks about the vesting of all of the property and rights of the Carter Observatory into the Wellington City Council. Now, we've heard a lot of people extolling the Carter Observatory, including myself. It is a fantastic tourism centre. It is a fantastic education centre, a great asset in Wellington, and congratulations to the Wellington City Council for stepping in and coming essentially to the rescue of the Carter Observatory. However, there is one issue that I think we haven't really discussed in this House in considering this bill, and that is the lack of resources which essentially led to the demise of the Carter Observatory as our national observatory. Because a few years ago, in 2005, an astronomer and an Australian professor, Mike Bessell, of the Australian National University, was commissioned by the Ministry of Research, Science and Technology to review the Carter Observatory. And it is very interesting to read some of the conclusions that he came to. He said that the main reason that the Carter Observatory failed in its role as being the National Observatory of New Zealand was the lack of adequate financial resources. He said that there is general agreement in the astronomical community that the main reason has been the lack of resourcing. And then he went on to compare it with countries overseas. He said that unlike other observatories overseas, we have a much smaller percentage of research and development funding available for astronomical research in New Zealand compared to Australia, compared to other nations in the world. So I think this is the tragedy of the loss of the National Observatory, is the lack of funding that we are giving to astronomy and to science generally in New Zealand. He also pointed out that virtually no science centre in the world or no planetarium in the world is able to sustain its operation solely through gate takings, and that a proportion of the running costs in every planetarium or science centre in the world is provided by local or national government. So, while it's all very well for all of us here to wax eloquently about the Carter Observatory and which has now been, it's what essentially we're doing here in this part of the bill is transferring what was once a wonderful national observatory into what's now a tourism centre and an education centre. And it is a great planetarium, a great education centre, a great tourism asset. But the truth is that the demise of our National Observatory was because of lack of funding. The Wellington City Council has committed for funding for the next 10 years. What's going to happen after that? And I think it is a sad thing that we don't have any national observatory to replace this National Observatory. There's speculation, possibly it could be the University of Canterbury's Mount John Observatory. It could be, the University of Canterbury's Physics and Astronomy Department could become a centre of excellence. But basically, what they're saying is unless we fund this, unless we provide proper funding, and I'm glad to see the Minister of Science here, we won't have any national observatory in New Zealand. We won't have any centre of excellence for astronomy in New Zealand. And that really is an indictment on New Zealand and on our commitment to science. So I think that we need to remember this as we all sit here waxing eloquent about the Carter Observatory. We need to remember that that we are presiding here in this bill over the loss of our National Observatory. I think we're probably one of the only nations which doesn't have a National Observatory, and this has really come about, according to research, because we haven't put enough money, we haven't provided financial resources for astronomical research or to fund a National Observatory. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman. Alan PG.
Mr. Chairman, I move